Ready Lesson 9 Passages. Mystery on the Blue Ghost. "Let's pack up," Mr. Sanchez told the 20 students in the gigantic aircraft carrier, the USS Lexington. To become acquainted with life aboard a Navy ship during World War II, they had slept in the floating museum's narrow bunks. Suddenly, Harrison cried out, "My camera! It's gone!" He emptied his duffel bag and pawed through his possessions. "When did you last see it?" said Mr. Sanchez. "On the flight deck, when we were watching pelicans." Mr. Sanchez sighed. The carrier's flight deck could hold 3 football fields, but at least it narrowed things down. "Maybe the Blue Ghost took it," teased Victoria. "Forget about the ghost stories you heard. Why is the aircraft carrier really called the Blue Ghost?" Mr. Sanchez asked. "One student answered that during World War II. The USS Lexington was reported to have sunk 4 times, so the Japanese gave it its ghostly nickname." "Right. Now, to the flight deck, class." The students trudged up the stairs. "There it is!" shouted Harrison. He pointed to the control tower, which rose 150 feet high. Dangling from a tall antenna was a silver rectangle. "Nobody could have gotten way up there," said Victoria. "Perhaps not, but look!" exclaimed Mr. Sanchez. Near the dangling camera, a pelican flapped lazily toward the outer bay, scanning the water for the silver flash of a tasty fish. Now you may answer the questions that are below your passage. From The Magician's Elephant. At the end of the century before last, in the market square of the city of Baltese, there stood a boy with a hat on his head and a coin in his hand. The boy's name was Peter Augustus Duchesne, and the coin that he held did not belong to him, but was instead the property of his guardian, an old soldier named Vilna Lutz, who had sent the boy to the market for fish and bread. That day in the market square, in the midst of the entirely unremarkable and absolutely ordinary stalls of the fishmongers and cloth merchants and bakers and silversmiths, there had appeared without warning or fanfare the red tent of a fortune-teller. Attached to the fortune-teller's tent was a piece of paper, and pinned upon the paper in a cramped but unapologetic hand were these words: "The most profound and difficult questions that could possibly be posed by the human mind or heart will be answered within for the price of 1 floret." Peter read the small sign once and then again. The audacity of the words, their dizzying promise, made it difficult suddenly for him to breathe. He looked down at the coin, the single floret, in his hand. "But I cannot do it," he said to himself. "Truly I cannot. For if I do, Vilna Lutz will ask where the money has gone, and I will have to lie, and it is a very dishonorable thing to lie." He put the coin in his pocket. He took the soldier's hat off his head and then put it back on. He stepped away from the sign, and he came back to it and stood considering again the outrageous and wonderful words. "But I must know," he said at last. He took the floret from his pocket. "I want to know the truth, and so I will do it. But I will not lie about it, and in that way I will remain at least partly honorable." With these words, Peter stepped into the tent and handed the fortune-teller the coin. And she, without even looking at him, "1 floret will buy you 1 answer, and only 1. Do you understand?" "Yes," said Peter. He stood in the small patch of light, making its sullen way through the open flap of the tent, and he let the fortune-teller take his hand. She examined it slowly, moving her eyes back and forth, as if there were a whole host of very small words inscribed there, an entire book about Peter Augustus Duchesne, composed atop his palm. She said at last. She dropped his hand and squinted up at his face. "But of course you are just a boy." "I'm 10 years old," said Peter. He took the hat from his head and he stood as straight and as tall as he was able. "And I am training to become a soldier, brave and true, but it does not matter how old I am. You took the floret, so now you must give me my answer." "A soldier, brave and true," said the fortune-teller. She laughed and spat on the ground. Very well, soldier brave and true, if you say it is so. Then it is so. Ask me your question. Peter felt a small stab of fear. What if, after all this time, he could not bear the truth? What if he did not really want to know? Speak, said the fortune teller. Ask. My parents, said Peter. That's your question, said the fortune teller. They are dead. Peter's hands trembled. That is not my question, he said. I know that already. You must tell me something that I do not know. You must tell me of another. You must tell me. The fortune teller narrowed her eyes. Ah, she said. Her? Your sister? That is your question? Very well. She lives. Peter's heart seized upon the words, and he closed his eyes and he concentrated. If she lives, then I must find her. So my question is, how do I make my way there, to where she is? He kept his eyes closed and he waited. The elephant, said the fortune teller. What? Peter said. He opened his eyes, certain that he had misunderstood. You must follow the elephant, said the fortune teller. She will lead you there.